Hi, my name is Mike Ward. I'm the Global Director of Content at Scrip, The Pink Sheet and In Vivo. We're here at the Biotech Showcase 2018, a meeting that runs parallel with the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference, which is the traditional kickoff meeting for the pharmaceutical industry and all those interested, the investors, biotech companies, as well as obviously pharmaceutical executives. It gives them an opportunity to discuss sort of the issues that are keeping them awake at night, but also to update each other on progress that's been made, and also it's an opportunity for them to actually sort of start having negotiations or at least conversations about potential deals. I'm joined by Glyn Edwards, who's the CEO of Summit Therapeutics, which is an Oxford-based company. You're in the orphan space, particularly with Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and that's kind of, orphan drugs are an interesting place anyway for a lot of companies.
True.
And DMD in recent years has become much more prominent because we saw sort of things like Sarepta and the sort of progress that's been made. So, is it already not a busy place?
It's a very busy place, and I think if you're a parent of a child with muscular dystrophy, it's a very exciting place. There's not just our technology coming along, but we've seen Sarepta get their approval. In Europe, PTC Therapeutics have an approval. But both of those are for small subsets. So the majority of the DMD patients, still there is no disease-modifying treatment. But there's us coming along with utrophin modulation, which has the potential to treat the entire population. And a bit further back, there's some really exciting developments in gene therapy, and even beyond that, CRISPR. So I think that in many genetic diseases, but particularly in Duchenne, it's a really interesting area, and we're right at the forefront of it.
Yeah. So where are you in the progress of your utrophin modulation?
So our utrophin modulator, we have a series of compounds, but our most advanced, ezutromid, is in a phase 2 study now, and in these orphan diseases, these phase 2 studies are really vital. They're the make or break. Traditionally, phase 2s in other areas are big value inflection points. It's absolutely true in orphan diseases. And we're in the middle of this 1-year study. So patients are treated for 48 weeks. At the end of 48 weeks, we'll get all the data together and be analysing that. And that will be out in Q3 of 2018 of this year. But this study actually has an interim look. So after 24 weeks of treatment, we're also going to be looking at the data, which is soon, yes. If 48 weeks is in Q3, 6 months earlier is Q1. And as lots of investors this week have been reminding me, we're in Q1. When's the data coming, Glyn? So we've moved from which quarter is it? We had people asking which day it was this week.
So the in DMD, there are sort of like some standard, primary endpoints. Are you involved with those? Or?
Yeah, so one of the difficulties we've got is there are some endpoints that everyone would like to see, functional endpoints. The famous one is the 6-minute walk test, but there are others, the North Star ambulatory assessment or upper limb performance. This is a really slowly progressing disease though. So many of these kids aren't actually diagnosed until they're 3 or 4. So for that long, it's not been obvious that they have a muscle wasting disease. So if you have a treatment that completely stops that, and that would be the holy grail, that would be a brilliant treatment. It may be years before you could actually see measurable differences in the performance. And that means trials have to be very long and with the variability very large. And so our interest in this phase 2 and what Sarepta was approved on actually for their accelerated approval are surrogate endpoints, things that are showing what's going on in the muscle itself. And these are the key endpoints that we're really focused on in this phase 2 study. So we first of all we'll be looking at biopsy samples to have a look at are we seeing target engagement. So for us, we want to see the changes in the levels of this protein utrophin that we're getting the boys to make, and then changes in muscle fiber maturity, because sadly, to a first approximation, these boys' muscles never mature, because as the fiber matures, it loses dystrophin, it breaks down, goes back to being immature. And so with our intervention, if we can get the boys to have the muscle cells break down, the fibers should get more mature, and we should see that in this study in the biopsy set.
And is there an expectation at the sort of the 48-week data that if it is compelling enough, you'd be able to go for registration?
It is possible, but our expectation is for this that this is a proof of concept study, and it would be big validation of the technology, showing activity. But it's highly likely we'll have to do another study for registration.
Right. Okay. Now, also in the orphan space, traditionally biotech companies have been able to actually hold on to the assets because it's a very, very sort of tight-knit patient population that it's dealing with. What are your expectations for the commercialization of your product?
Yeah, so we did a partnership deal with Sarepta for European rights about 18 months ago, and we were really pleased with that. Not only did it bring some cash in, but actually they're a great collaborator. We really got a lot of non-financial benefit from that interaction, and we've shared with them European rights and Latin American rights, but we've retained North American rights, and our intention is to retain North American rights all the way through. We still have Asian rights available, and we will probably partner those, but we're in no rush to do it.
So there's an irony that a European company or a European-based company has surrendered the European rights and retaining the US and the...
It's more fun than that, because actually Sarepta is a US company. They're actually looking for European approval. Right now they don't have significant European infrastructure, but it's a good partnership, and we can both make that work.
And beyond DMD, you also have an interest in the antibiotic space.
Yes, we do, and I think that actually shows some of the perverse economics in the pharmaceutical industry at the moment. So we've been big price products, and So we have orphan drugs which affect only a very small number of patients. So our DMD product's one of the larger orphan drugs, and its population is about 50,000 boys in the developed world. Everyone's very excited because we can get good pricing, get good market penetration, make a big difference to these boys. We all know the world needs new antibiotics, and yet pricing in antibiotics is very, very challenging. We have a program in phase 3, a revolutionary treatment for C. difficile infection, which has stunning phase 2 data, and it's been a struggle to get investor interest in that. And so, society as a whole needs to think, how are we going to incentivize companies like ours to develop new antibiotics?
And that product's focusing on sort of hospital-acquired infection?
Yeah, well, C. diff's a bit different to most infections. So if you or I, first of all, start thinking about antibiotics, we start being really concerned about resistance. And in almost everything, it is the issue. So in MRSA, in gonorrhea, it's resistance that's the real concern. As yet in C. diff, that's not the issue. The problem in C. diff is twofold. First of all, it's come from nowhere. 30 years ago, there were very few cases, and now there are 500,000 cases in North America, and more than 500,000 cases every year in Europe. And while it's reasonably easy to treat, so vancomycin, which is generic, or metronidazole, which is generic, you have high cure rates with it. If you are cured, and it's the first time you've had C. diff, you have a 25 to 30% chance that you will get a recurrence of the disease within a month. That's a really short time frame. So there's something going on here, and we now understand what it is, that both this exponential increase in the number of cases and this high recurrence rate are related. And it's because we've got really great antibiotics. So if you get C. diff, you get a really great antibiotic, it kills the C. diff, but it also wipes out large swathes of the good organisms that you have in your gut, the microbiome. And it's the microbiome that is actually protecting you from further infection. So after 10 days of treatment, you've killed the C. diff. 4 or 5 days later, all the antibiotic is washed out of the system, and then your gut's recolonized. And if it gets recolonized with C. diff, you're in real trouble because you're pretty weak from the first infection. C. diff is not just a minor stomach upset, it's pretty serious. So if you get it for the second time, it has high morbidity and it has really high costs because you're going to be in a very expensive either intensive care or a high dependency unit. And so that's a huge opportunity for us.
So what's happened? That's in phase 3, that product.
Yeah.
And when do you expect the sort of...
We're just starting phase 3. So there are 2 large studies to be done, each of about 700 patients, take about 2 years, and they're really expensive studies. But some of the good things that are happening in antibiotics is there's government and charity and other support for these. So this program, through discovery and through to phase 2, was heavily supported by the Wellcome Trust, and now we've had BARDA step in to give us a pretty substantial amount of money to help fund the phase 3 program.
And you just made the acquisition of an antibiotics business.
Yes,
in the UK.
it is.
So how does that add to the arsenal?
Well, so we've been looking obviously very hard at antibiotics, and there's some really interesting things happening. Many of the late stage antibiotics that are in development now are not that revolutionary. They're small changes on existing therapies, and yet further back in research there's some really exciting step changes. So we've decided we're going to look for new antibiotics against new targets, preferably narrow spectrum, so that we can have the drug for the bug. And we came across this company. Actually, we'd known them for some time. Became clear a transaction was available called Discover. They have a really hot genetics-based platform that's already identified novel targets on a range of serious pathogens, and that's been validated. First of all, they have a partnership with Roche, which has been pretty successful, but more importantly from us, there are some molecules coming through, some programs in there, new antibiotics in new chemical space against new targets, against major pathogens. So we're hugely excited that we can add to the overall business. Obviously, investor focus and our focus for the next few weeks is really on this phase 2 study in Duchenne. Duchenne's a really hot area, but the world needs new antibiotics, and I think over the next 3-4 years, antibiotics are going to become very investable, and we're going to be at the forefront of it.
Great. All right, Glyn, well, we look forward to sort of seeing the data.
Yeah, look forward to it. Nice to see you again, Mike.
Cheers.